Right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. So today's episode, we interview Stuart, who is the founder of Trek and Climb Fitness. And what he does day to day is very similar to me in the sense that he trains hikers and other adventurers in his local of Aberdeen, Scotland, and also online through hiker clients all around the world. And in this episode, he shares some great insights around what got him into the world of training for hiking, his insights and his perspectives as a coach for adventure athletes, and shares a few great pieces of wisdom around preparing for adventures. So I really do hope you've enjoyed today's episode. And with that being said, let's get into it. Hey, my name is Rowan Smith, and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast, which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare, and conquer your upcoming hike, trek, or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude, and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable, and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. So welcome, Stuart. Thank you so much for coming on the show, mate.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so as I was sort of saying before we both just turned this recording on, it's always so cool to meet other people around the world, like working this training for adventure space. Like there's not so many of us out there. And yeah, I randomly came across your stuff the other day. Absolutely loved it. I thought, you know what, it'd be great to have you on. And in all honesty, we actually haven't talked to anyone from Scotland before. So, you know, that's a first for the show as well. So I'm pretty pumped to have you on board. So I guess to kick things off, do you just want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are, you know, where you're from, and what do you do?
Yes, my name's Stuart. I'm a personal trainer from Aberdeen, Scotland. I'm 33 years old, and yeah, it's I've been doing this now for around 3 years. I think coming up to 3 years soon. So yeah, I've been loving it ever since I started it. So.
Yeah, how good. I actually was really excited to kind of see you were from Aberdeen because just random off topic, but the other day my brother did this massive family tree, and it turns out from my grandma back like 30 generations until like they ran out of like couldn't find any more information. Like one part of my family was just from Aberdeen for like stupid amount of generations. So it's actually pretty cool to kind of, saw that. I was like, you know what? I'm definitely going to be up there sometime soon and hopefully do a little bit of hiking myself. So there we go. But completely off
That's
topic.
cool,
Let's
yeah.
get back on topic. So, you know, obviously you have coming on the show. You're a coach who works with, you know, people who are training for adventures. Can you just give us a bit of a background of like, you know, what did get you into, you know, coaching people to tackle different types of mountain adventures?
So it all kind of started when I was around, probably most when I was around 16. I went on a expedition to Peru with the school I was at the time, and which was quite unheard of. It was we were away for like a whole month, and from there we did a heap of stuff in Peru. We went to like the Amazon rainforest. We went into the Andes. We went to Machu Picchu. Did heaps of different stuff over there, and yeah, it was just a totally life-changing experience for someone being so young going to a country like that. So that's kind of when I first fell in love with the mountains, especially the bigger mountains. Like I'd been obviously in the mountains in Scotland before, but seeing the Andes and different things over there, it was just totally mind-blowing to me. And ever since then, I knew that I wanted to do something more mountain based with my life going forward. And like I didn't really do anything with it really until my like late 20s. So it was still a good few years after that I did that I kind of changed anything in my life. I worked in the hospitality trade for a long time, and I went to Everest Base Camp in 2012. I think I was in my early 20s then, and I also went to Mera Peak in 2015, 3 years later, with some of the same group that I went to Everest Base Camp with. And for both of those expeditions, I trained very specifically for them, and I just kind of did it myself because I'd always been into the gym. I'd always been into like running and just general fitness anyway. So I kind of just made a plan up myself and just kind of went with it, and just I was always kind of trying to learn a little bit more about it as well. And that was kind of it at 2015. And then finally, like around 2018, 2019, I decided that I wanted to become a personal trainer. I worked at a local brewery at the time, but I just wasn't really liking the job I was in. So I decided to make the change. I was like, it's either now or never. So I did that and became a personal trainer because I wanted to blend the two things I loved the most, which were training and the mountains. So I kind of wanted to help people get fit and ready for the mountains. So that was kind of my inspiration. And I used, I think lockdown kind of helped that quite a lot because it gave me the time to get everything set up that I needed to do. It gave me time to study. It gave me time to get all my like systems in place for my business. Yeah, it helped quite a lot with that. Where I I didn't really start becoming an actual personal trainer until after lockdown here kind of finished. Well, not finished, but things eased off. So I went moved into a local gym, a local commercial gym, when things kind of got back to a bit more of normality. And yeah, I just took it from there. And working in a commercial gym was always quite good to start with. It got kind of made me hit the ground running. And yeah, I learned a lot from there. And yeah, now I'm self-employed and I just train people who are ready to go on expeditions, who are a bit curious about their training for going away, or just people who like hill walking and want to enjoy the hills or in Scotland a little bit more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, fantastic. What an awesome story there. And so like that's unreal about that trip when you were 16 for a month getting out to travel. Like that's crazy. Like can't believe that. That would have been absolutely amazing. Um
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
how
something
good.
else.
And then, on the sort of final point you mentioned there, like, as I said, we haven't really had too many people from Scotland on the show before, but I know we have a lot of listeners who actually, want to go, kind of get over there and do a bit of hiking. So talk to me a little bit about the hiking in Scotland just before we move on. Like, what are the sort of typical things people like to get out and do over there?
Uh, Obviously, the main, such a big thing over here is Munro bagging. So obviously there's mountains in Scotland that are classed as Munros. They're over a certain height, so they're usually over. I think it's 917 or 914 meters. I can't remember. That are classed as Munros, and there's 282 of them. And what people do is literally just try and tick them off one by one. You can usually group a few together at a time because they're all a little bit close together sometimes. But yeah, they're kind of throughout Scotland, and that's quite a big thing. That was a very big thing during lockdown as well. It's always been quite a big thing, but during lockdown, it really like made its own because people had to go outside and do stuff like where you weren't allowed to be in like big groups of people. You weren't allowed to like you were able to go out into the countryside and do stuff, but you weren't allowed to go into other people's houses and stuff. So the first thing that folk wanted to do was, well, I may as well see what's on my doorstep and make an adventure here rather than go elsewhere because they couldn't travel abroad. So yeah, so there's yeah, the scenery and the landscape here is amazing. It's like nowhere else, I suppose. And yeah, I love living in Scotland. It's amazing.
Fantastic. So I guess when it comes to your training for your clients for physical prep for adventure, are there any sort of I guess particular philosophies that you kind of believe in when it comes to this type of training, or that you sort of base your sort of preparation around?
So when people come to me and say to me like, yeah, I've got an exhibition booked, like the biggest thing I try to tell them is just to make your training very specific. Like it needs to mimic what you're going to do on the mountain. The like the accessibility of getting onto the hills can be quite tough at times, especially in Scotland. If you don't stay near the hills, um, if you can't get onto them, like obviously the best training for the hills would be to get onto the hills, and hill walk and do all that kind of stuff on there. But like it can be very hard, like especially if you don't live at the very bottom of a hill or a mountain. So I try to get my clients to be as specific as possible with their training. So just doing exercises that mimic certain movements on the mountain. And yeah, just helping people find that balance between cardio and strength work. I think you have a lot of people that either do too much of one and not enough of the other. So it's always try to find that balance of incorporating a little bit of strength if you're only focused on cardio, or if you do a lot of strength work and you've never really done much cardio before, it's try to find that balance, because at the end of the day the cardio side of things is going to be what's going to help you the most on the hills, but that's not to mean that strength work isn't important either. So
And then when we're looking at this type of training, like what do you think is just, I guess, not done enough of when it comes to training for hiking and mountain adventures?
I think just strength training in general, I always find it quite hard to get across to people, like to incorporate strength training. I suppose like that's what my whole business is kind of based around, is doing like finding that balance between the two, of cardio and strength. And I think that people just think like, oh, if I go out running, like I'll be fine. And for like a lot of adventure things, like in a lot of like expeditions, yeah, that could get you there. Like I'm not saying that like if you've done a lot of running or done a lot of cardio stuff and a lot of hill walking before, that these expeditions will never happen if you don't train specifically for them. But I wouldn't leave these things up to chance. Like I always find that some people, like if I pay a lot of money to go on an expedition, I don't want to leave that up to chance to think that, oh, I might be able to get to the summit, or I might be able to get to base camp or wherever I'm going. Like I don't want to leave that up to chance. That's not what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm ready to go. Another thing I don't think is that maybe could be a little bit better in like our industry is maybe generic training plans. I find them like it's in the name, obviously, like they're not built specifically for you as a person. So obviously a lot of expedition companies will give out training plans for their clients, which is fine. It's better than nothing, obviously. But I sometimes find that they're quite hard to follow. Like I don't find them very easy to. Sometimes it would just say like, go out and run for X amount of time, and then it'll say, oh, now go do strength training, do a lower body strength work, and then people are kind of left to themselves to try and figure out and fill in the gaps. Where that's kind of maybe where me and you come in, and we fill in that gaps for people. We do all that work for you already. So I think that would be it's a big thing that's not done very well. Is just people like me and you like being there to kind of bridge that gap, where if people do download a generic training plan, that there is a lot better training out there, like that we would provide for you. So
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I've definitely talked about this quite a few times on the podcast before, but yeah, those sort of, I guess, generic, almost cookie cutter plans, and as you said,
yeah,
provided from the trekking companies or the adventure companies, it's better than nothing. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, it just ends up being very, very unrealistic. And I've seen
yeah,
ones that ask people to get out and hike like 4 times a week for like multiple hours, and it's like, that'd be awesome if you could, but my gosh,
yeah,
like, yeah, it's not super realistic for a lot of people. So yeah, I'm right with you there. I'll tell you that. um, so, so then, when we're thinking about training for these adventures, are there any sort of particular workouts, I suppose, that you have, as favorites? Obviously, everyone's individual, everyone's got their different needs and different trips and all of that. But are there any standout favorite workouts that you do have for different types of hikers?
um, certain like exercises and stuff I like would be like anything that mimics like high like box step ups, anything like that. Continual step up workouts, like interval stair climber sessions, weighted or unweighted, and also even just like backpack walks. I think that's not done enough. Like where if you're not able to get on a hill, like there's nothing to say that you can't put your backpack on, load it up with some weights, or not exactly weights, but anything to like give it some weight and just go around the block. Like you don't need to go up a hill. You can pop that bag in your back, and that's going to get your body used to having that bag on there. Like if you train without a bag all year round and then go on your expedition, and all of a sudden you've got this like 10 kg bag or more like strapped to your back, things are going to feel so much different. So I think um, training with a backpack on just walking would be, or on stair climbers or things like that. Like it keeps things very specific and just mimics what you'll be doing when you're away. So I think things like that I quite like to do with people. And I do them in different phases and stuff. So sometimes we won't do them depending on what the focus is for that phase. And yeah, and it depends how far away their expedition is as well. If it's still a year away, we maybe wouldn't focus on that too much at the start. But as things get closer, we would definitely incorporate some stuff like that just to make it specific and make sure that their body and their like mental state as well is ready for to know what's to come. So
Then on the point where you sort of mentioned the sort of extended step ups. So this is something that I use for a few of my clients, particularly if they're like training in a gym and they may not want to get outdoors, or maybe they're having a short amount of time at home, or whatever. But one thing we often run into is like, and I do it myself, is for some people they love it, but some people they find it's pretty dull sometimes. So
mhm.
just out of curiosity, do you have any tricks that you use with your clients, or things you recommend that if you're like, you know what, this is going to be a good workout for you, how can you keep them entertained to through that type of workout? Do you have any tricks or ideas on that?
I suppose the another way I've kind of mixed up a little bit was I did it for as a challenge for all of my clients on my training platform. So I did like a step up challenge 1 month, and people actually really enjoyed it. Like it was, I didn't get a lot of like negative feedback from it. It was one of the workouts where a lot more people did it than I thought they would. There's some monthly challenges I do for clients that yeah, people don't enjoy that much if they see the word burpees or anything in there. Like no one really tends to do them as much. But the continual step up challenge, yeah, everyone seemed to like it, and I think I did it in an interval, like a pyramid kind of fashion, so it like kind of increased in time, so you didn't do it continually all the time. You got a little bit of rest. You could also play about with the weights. You could do unweighted. You could do it weighted. You could use different weights. You could use like sandbags and stuff as well. So yeah, I think breaking it up so you know that there's kind of like a progression to the workout rather than just continually stepping up. I mean, I've done the continual ones for half an hour at a time, just straight on, keep on going. But like the things I did to maybe mix up a little bit, I put on my expedition boots, like I weighed up my backpack, like I tried to make it quite specific. One of the reasons was because I was trying to wear my boots in. Like you don't put on 6,000 meter boots and go walking out in the street with them. You might get a couple of funny looks. So yeah, popping the boots on and doing some workouts. Just I didn't do it in a gym, to be fair. You might get a couple of funny looks there as well. But I mean, doing it at home, like out in the back garden, whatever, you could pop the boots on and just wear them in because you're not gonna wear them in on the hills and stuff. It's not kind of the right environment for it. So yeah, I think that could kind of mix things up and make it a little bit more exciting.
Absolutely. Hi. And then I guess, do you have any? I like this question when people come on, and sometimes I get some interesting ones. Do you have any uncommon pieces of advice for hikers, which maybe they might not have heard before, whether it's for their prep or their training or their gear or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I got, like, and it was only something that I came across when I'd heard about it when I was in Everest on Everest Base Camp Trek, and then I implemented it a few years later when I went to Mira Peak, and it was the addition of a pee bottle to my kit. So the it was a few like when we were on Everest Base Camp, a lot of times, like especially if you're on Diamox and other stuff like that, that you end up needing to go to the toilet a few times through the night, and it can be very disruptive to your sleep. And if you don't get good sleep, you're then a little bit more tired the next day, and it can kind of has a snowball effect. So, and I mean, this piece of advice maybe speaks to males more than females. I don't know how a female would do this, but there maybe is a way. If someone could tell me the, But what I would use is like a wide top Nalgene bottle. And to be fair, I've got a glow in the dark one, so it's even easier to find in the night in the tent. And yeah, it's just going to the toilet in the tent rather than having to go get your clothes on, get up, get outside the tent, go find the toilet wherever it's at. Because I mean, if you're up in the hills, it's not going to have any lights on either. So you're going to have your head torch on. You're going to be in the cold. You're going to have to go to the toilet. So yeah, it was a total game changing thing for me to use one of these bottles. And then you just get up in the morning and go empty it first thing when you get up. So it just made my life a lot easier when I was away. So maybe it's not anything to do with training or anything, but it's definitely one of the biggest bits of advice I got when I was away to Everest Base Camp before going away to Mirror Peak. So
No, for sure, for sure. And I had a really good story on that exact thing. And one of my clients, he got the same piece of advice. One of my very, very first clients, when I first started training hikers, he got the same piece of advice when he was leading into Kilimanjaro. But he ran into a little bit of trouble that it was so cold up in the mountain that he was doing that, but he was also bringing another bottle, and he was filling up with boiling water before he went to bed and using it as a bit of a hot water bottle. But he said it
yeah,
was like the same type of water bottle, and he said he had a pretty couple of couple of close calls when he went to have like a drink at night
yeah,
with the one that had cooled down. So his follow up advice on that was yeah, definitely make sure if you bring in two bottles, they're very clearly differentiated. So I had a good
yeah.
laugh about that. But yeah, how good. So yeah, I reckon we've covered some pretty good bits and pieces today. I guess beyond what we sort of covered so far, is there anything else that we sort of haven't touched on today that you kind of like to add, or any interesting points, or any bits of advice you'd like to add to all of this?
Like, no, I can't really think of anything else to really add at the moment. Yeah, I suppose it can be a little bit more of an introduction onto myself and my business, and yeah, I mean, I'd like to do these things a little bit more often. I'm sure there's a lot more things we could speak about, especially specific like training stuff, and yeah, like different experiences with clients and different expeditions and stuff like that. Like, I think it would be quite a good thing to do more regularly because we both do the same training for people as well. We both maybe got different experiences, so but totally cool to do this a lot more often. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's always interesting chatting with people who live in certain areas that we don't. So maybe we could like have do another one where we talk through some specifics of certain like hikes up in Scotland, and sort of talks through some of that, and sort of how you may train and prep for something like that, which would be really handy. Both for myself because I'm planning on being over there next summer and doing a bit of hiking myself, and also a lot of people as well listening. So that might be a good thing to put on the list. So I guess, well, before we wrap things up then today, yeah, do you just want to just tell us a little bit more about your business? Like, give us the rundown, what you do, where you're located, how you operate. Yeah, just talk us through it.
yeah, so my business is called Trek and Climb Fitness. You'll be able to find me on Instagram. Is probably where I'm most active. And yeah, I'm an online training service or a one-to-one personal training service as well if you live here in Aberdeen. But I do a lot of like online coaching. So it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. I can still build everything personalized to you and get yourself ready for your upcoming expedition or adventure, whatever it is, really. So, yeah, you'd rather head off in your trip with confidence and knowing that you're going to be fit and strong for the trip rather than going away and being worried about it the whole time. So, yeah, so if you want to find me, my Instagram tag is at Trek Climb Fitness, and then be able to find me also on my website www.trekandclimbfitness.com. And yeah, soon I'm going to have a free guide for beginners to mountain fitness. So you'll be able to download that, and that'll be up on my website shortly in the next week or two. And yeah, from there, you can easily book a call, do a little Zoom call, find out what you've got planned, and yeah, get you on board, get you into some specific training for the mountains.
No, fantastic, fantastic. Well, what I'll do for all of those things you mentioned there, for anyone who's interested in checking out Stuart and Trek and Climb Fitness, I'll leave those links in the show notes below, so you can check out the Instagram, the website, and hopefully get your hands on that guide as well if you're interested as well. So anyone listening, just kind of have a scroll down, you'll be able to find all those links just below the episode. But aside from that, Stuart, it's been really, really, really great having you on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's really great to connect, hear a little bit about your training, what you do, and a little bit about your story. So thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it, and I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this episode today.
That's no problem at all. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Training for Trekking podcast. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in iTunes. So thanks for getting involved, and we'll see you on the next one.